I went to school in a little country school up in near an old Indian reservation in East Texas called Peachtree Village. And every morning our teachers start off with a verse of scripture and prayer, and we'd stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. It was just a common thing everybody did. I don't see that happening anymore. They don't do that anymore. And I think that was the beginning of in the 1960s, in my view, is when the culture started to change. And now this country has sort of drifted away from the Lord, and I think to our own peril. And I wish there was a way to get us back to it, you know, where we honored the Lord and served Him through His churches and through our communities.
Do you think anything has to do with, I mean, obviously a part of our history is that we, during that time period, we experienced a lot of wars, World War I, World War II, and Korean War, which you served in. And so the 60s kind of starts, right when you get back from that. What was that like as somebody growing up in America as a young man, probably having a lot of dreams and goals and aspirations, and then the Korean War is going on, and you find yourself in the thick of it. What is that like for you as a young man trying to process that?
Well, like I said, we live in an isolated place on farms. And so I grew up in a farming community. A mile down the road was one farm. About a half a mile down the road the other way was a farm. So I knew all those farmers and their kids and went to school with them. But I was a young man and went to Beaumont. I wanted to go to Lamar University, but my dad developed cancer and I had to leave, go back to the farm. All my brothers and sisters had already left. I was one of 11 children, and I was the youngest boy, so I stayed on the farm while my daddy was ill. And then I met my wife in Beaumont and married. We moved to Sweeney and heard a job about Phillips, and so I went to work for Phillips then instead of going to school. Then Uncle Sam called me. And,
what were you doing at Phillips before that?
I was in a utility, water treatment, electrical, running generators, steam boilers, and things like that. And when I went into service, I went to Paso Robles, California, to Camp Roberts and took basic training, and then went to Japan, to Tokyo, and went to a school, chemical, biological, radiological warfare school. If you remember, we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan.
Right.
This was 5 years later, and everyone was afraid of the radiation and stuff like that. So I went to a radiation school and poison gas school and this type of thing. And then I caught a destroyer at Sasebo, Japan, and went to Incheon. That's a port town of Korea. And amongst a lot of people, a lot of soldiers. And I never will forget boarding that ship to go overseas. We were all wondering what's going to happen to us, where we were going. And there at the dockside waiting to get on the ship, there was a little wooden shack and some ladies messing around in there giving coffee and donuts. It wasn't the Red Cross. It was a group of women called the Gray Ladies. They were all elderly people.
Okay.
One little lady had a bun haircut and a hairdo and granny glasses. She come up to me and said, "Soldier, you look like you need a hug." I said, "Yes, ma'am. I come from a hugging family." And she gave me coffee and a donut. Well, anyway, I got on the ship and was gone 22 months. Went to Tokyo and then went to Incheon, Busan, Japan, Korea, and joined my outfit. It was an infantry company, a combat engineer, not combat engineer, but a combat soldier. a rifleman was my
Mm-hmm.
MOS. And I stayed in a camp there where all these soldiers met and stayed until they were assigned out to different units.
Mm.
And I grew up there one night. We left about midnight on 4 Army trucks, some of us. And it was wintertime, and the roads were icy, and we went up and down them mountain roads, no lights. We went under blackout. And all I could see out the back of this canvas-covered truck was the flashes of light, like lightning. For just a moment, you could see, you know, when the lightning flashed, you can see something.
Right.
And that's the way these artillery shells were. The ground was shaking and rumbling. And we were all afraid, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're going, what's going to happen.
Right.
And finally the trucks rumbled to a stop. And an officer come out and says, "Get out and fix your bayonets. They're trying to overrun us." And that was the beginning of my becoming a man, a defining moment in my life. Well, anyway, I served there, and we moved around on the front. We were called a fire brigade. Some company would get in trouble up on the front, being overrun. We'd run over there and help them, and back and forth. And so I spent that time doing that. And then one day a runner come up to the front and said, "Sarge, the war's over." And I said, "Oh, thank God, I'll get to go home."
Mm.
I was over there longer than I was married.
Oh, my goodness.
So I said, "My wife's not going to know me now. I'm not the same person."